I thought my worst fear was losing my family until the night flashing red and blue lights flooded my bedroom, and I realized the person who destroyed my life shared my blood and my last name. I still remember the exact moment the sirens pierced the quiet night. It was to 17 a.m. I was half asleep, sprawled out on my bed with headphones in, mindlessly scrolling through memes on my phone. The knock on the door wasn't gentle, it was thunderous, relentless. Then came the shouting, "Police, open up!" At first, I thought it was some kind of mistake, a wrong address, maybe a drug bust gone to the wrong house. We lived in a relatively quiet suburban neighborhood where the biggest scandal was a cat getting stuck on a roof. But within seconds, the door to my room burst open, guns drawn, flashlights in my face, screaming. My heart nearly stopped, hands where we can see them. I couldn't even process what was happening. I dropped my phone, raised my hands, and stammered something like, "What's going on?" But they didn't answer. They tore through my drawers, my closet, under my bed, flipping everything upside down like a tornado of authority and suspicion. Then one of them shouted, "Got it." He held up a small plastic bag filled with white powder. Time froze. I'd never touched drugs in my life. I barely even drank at parties, and I certainly didn't keep narcotics under my mattress. And yet, there it was, the damning evidence. Found in my room. They arrested me on the spot. I tried to scream, to explain, to beg them to listen, but all I got were Miranda rights and zip-tied wrist. I looked to my parents for help, for anything, but they stood at the top of the stairs, pale and silent. And right next to them was Rachel, my sister. She was crying soft, performative sobs into Mom's shoulder. I didn't want it to come to this, she said dramatically, loud enough for me to hear. I just couldn't stay quiet anymore. I knew then. She did this. She planted the drugs. And my parents believed her. Let me back up. Rachel and I were never close. Not even as kids. She was 2 years older than me. And from the moment I was born, I was her unwanted shadow. If she was the sun, I was the dust clinging to its heat. She was the golden child, straight A's, piano recitals, cheer squad, perfect hair, perfect smile. And I was just Michael, the quiet one, the overlooked one, the kid who doodled during dinner and forgot to make eye contact, sensitive, weird, too emotional. Our parents doted on her endlessly. When she failed her driving test, they bought her another lesson package. When I passed mine first try, I got a pat on the back and, "Hey, that's nice, honey." It was like living in a play where I was cast as an extra in my own family. By high school, Rachel had become the family's pride and joy. I, on the other hand, became a liability. I had one bad semester where I failed algebra and suddenly, I was slipping. Mom cried about how I was wasting my potential. Dad grounded me for a month. Rachel got to go on a ski trip after failing to subjects. But me? I was the disappointment. I tried to keep my head down. I kept my art to myself. I worked part-time in a bookstore. I never broke curfew. I was the invisible child, and I had learned to accept that. Until I made the mistake of starting to shine. Senior year, I landed a scholarship, a real one, full tuition to a design college out of state. My art portfolio had impressed someone. I still remember the way my hands trembled when I opened the email. I ran to the kitchen, waving my phone. I got in. I got the scholarship. Mom barely looked up from her coffee. "That's good, sweetie." Rachel, lounging on the couch, rolled her eyes. "Design school? That's not even a real degree." Dad glanced at the letter and muttered something about liberal arts nonsense. It crushed me, but I still planned to go. It was the first time in my life I felt like something was mine, a future, a chance. I was finally about to escape the orbit of their expectations, of Rachel's perfect reputation. And that's when the sabotage began. At first, it was small things. Rachel started planting seeds of doubt in my parents' minds. I saw something weird in his room. She told Mom casually one day, loud enough for me to hear. "Like powder? I don't know. Maybe he's experimenting, or he's been hanging out with that sketchy guy from art class. He smells like weed." Then came the money accusations. Rachel noticed a $20 bill missing from her wallet and told my parents she thought I'd taken it. I hadn't. I never would. But their faces darkened with worry. "You've been acting different lately," Dad said one night. "I think we need to talk about your behavior." Mom chimed in. No one asked how I was feeling. No one noticed how tense I'd become. How I started locking my door. How I stopped eating dinner with them. How I'd wake up in the middle of the night with panic attacks I couldn't explain. Then 1 week before I was supposed to leave for college, it happened. The drugs. At the station, I sat for hours, numb and cold, trying to wrap my head around it. The detective asked questions I couldn't answer. Where did the drugs come from? Who were my suppliers? Was I planning to distribute? My answers, I don't know. They're not mine. I've never seen them before, sounded weak, even to my own ears. They called my parents. I hoped, prayed they'd come in screaming, demanding my release, insisting this was all a mistake. Instead, they showed up looking disappointed. We just want to help him, Mom said. He's been struggling. Dad nodded solemnly. We didn't want to believe it either. Believe what, exactly? That their son, the kid who stayed in his room drawing fantasy maps and reading graphic novels, was suddenly a drug dealer. They didn't post bail right away. They said they needed to think about what was best for the family. I spent the night in a cell, surrounded by strangers, fluorescent lights buzzing above me like flies over a carcass. When I was finally released on bail 2 days later, the charges were still pending. The investigation would continue, but my scholarship revoked. The school mailed me a sterile 3-paragraph letter rescinding my admission due to the arrest. My future gone. Rachel didn't even try to hide her smile when I came home. You know, she said sweetly as I walked past her room. Maybe this is a wake-up call. You've been acting like such a victim lately. I snapped. For the first time in my life, I screamed at her. I called her a liar, a manipulator, a monster. I demanded to know why she did it, what I ever did to deserve this kind of betrayal. And she just laughed. Because you were starting to matter, she said. And that's not how it works around here. I tried to tell my parents. I showed them a journal where I had written everything down, dates, things she said, things that mysteriously disappeared from my room, the whisper campaigns. I even pointed out that I didn't have the kind of connections to get drugs in the first place, but they refused to believe it. She wouldn't do that, Mom said, horrified. She's your sister. Dad folded his arms. Sounds like you're deflecting responsibility. It hit me then, hard and final. They would always choose her, even if I was innocent, even if I was ruined. So I left. Not to college. That door had closed, but I packed what little I had and moved out. I crashed on a friend's couch for a while. Got a job waiting tables. Started rebuilding, piece by piece, but the scars, they stayed. Worse than the betrayal was the silence that followed, the absence of apology, the absence of truth. Rachel never confessed. My parents never questioned her. And I never came home again. For a long time, I drifted, emotionally, mentally, physically. I was a kid without a home, without a future, without a family. And no matter how many times I replayed the betrayal in my head, it always ended the same way, with red and blue lights, Rachel's crocodile tears, and my parents' hollow stares. I found a rhythm eventually. Working double shifts at a diner downtown. The manager, Reggie, was rough around the edges but gave me a shot. I kept my head down and my apron clean. Saved every penny. Found a roommate on Craigslist who didn't ask too many questions. I didn't tell anyone the real story. When people asked, I just said, family drama. It was easier than trying to explain that my sister framed me for drug possession, and my parents let her. But no matter how far I ran, the memory followed. It infected everything: my trust, my confidence, my ability to believe that anyone could care about me without hurting me. I was broken, not in a way people could see, but deep inside. Something had been shattered the night my family chose Rachel over me. And then, just when I started to rebuild the smallest piece of peace, Rachel found a new way to ruin me. It started with a DMA random message from someone I didn't recognize. Profile pic was a girl in a hoodie, messy hair, dark eyeliner. Username @Clodoisley. I almost deleted it, assuming it was spam, but the message stopped me cold. I need to talk to you. It's about Rachel. I think she did something like this to me, too. My hands froze over the keyboard. Who is this girl? What did she mean? Something like this. Could she actually know the truth? Or was this just another trick against every instinct I had left? I replied, "Who are you?" Her answer came quickly. "We went to school together. Rachel was dating my older brother, Kyle. She ruined his life. I can prove it. Can we talk?" I hesitated. Every wall I built screamed at me to ignore her. But curiosity and some sick part of me still clinging to hope made me say yes. We met at a coffee shop downtown the next day. Chloe was jittery, glancing over her shoulder like she expected Rachel to appear at any moment. She pulled out her phone and scrolled through screenshots. Text, DMIS. Emails documenting months of manipulation, blackmail, and lies. Rachel had dated her brother in high school. When he tried to break up with her, Rachel threatened to spread false rumors about him. When he didn't back down, she followed through. She claimed he had sent her inappropriate photos, that he was aggressive, that he stalked her. The school got involved. Kyle was suspended. His college application got flagged. His dream of playing football died. She tore him down. Chloe said, her voice trembling, and everyone believed her because she's good at crying on cue. I sat there, speechless, watching my sister's pattern unfold like a twisted art piece. This wasn't a what-I'm thing. This was who she was. Chloe leaned in and whispered, "You're not crazy. She's been doing this for years, and she always gets away with it." I went home that night with my stomach in knots. For months, I told myself maybe I was wrong. Maybe I had missed something. Maybe the pain I felt was just me being overly sensitive, overly dramatic, like they always said I was. But now, I wasn't alone. Rachel had left other victims in her wake. I was just one of many. And it lit something in me I hadn't felt in a long time. Rage. Not the loud kind. The quiet kind that simmers until it boils. The kind that wants justice, not revenge. I started doing my own digging. I remembered Rachel's old Instagram account. She had a private backup page she used in high school. I still had access. She never bothered to block me. I scrolled through years of posts, captions, comments. Nothing incriminating at first, just selfies, friend pics, inspirational quotes. Until I found something strange. A comment thread under a blurry party photo from the night before I was arrested. Someone named Braden commented, "Yo, Ratch, did you really do it?" Rachel replied with a single emoji, buried under dozens of likes and irrelevant replies. No one had noticed it, but it chilled me to the bone. Was Braden the guy who gave her the drugs? I clicked his profile. It was public. He posted about parties, deals, late-night deliveries. His captions were full of code words, powder runs, snowstorms, special packages. He was a dealer. I sent the thread to Chloe. She screenshotted it too. "Keep everything," she said. "It's evidence." I didn't know what we were building yet, but I knew we were onto something. A week later, Braden messaged me. At first, I panicked. Had he found out I was snooping? Was he going to threaten me? But the message was simple. "I heard what she did. You didn't deserve that. I'm sorry." I stared at the screen in disbelief. "You knew she planted the drugs." His reply came instantly. "She paid me, said it was a prank, that you were being a creep and needed to be taught a lesson. She told me it was just to scare you." My fingers trembled as I typed. "She ruined my life." "I know," he wrote. "I didn't realize how far it went. If you ever go public, I'll back you up. I have screenshots." That was the moment I knew. I had to do it. I had to tell the world what happened. Not for pity, not for revenge, but because people needed to know who Rachel really was. And maybe, just maybe, I could finally reclaim my truth. I worked with Chloe to compile everything. We gathered screenshots, messages, timestamps, accounts. I wrote out everything Rachel had done to me in excruciating detail, from the gaslighting to the final betrayal. Then I posted it on Reddit, on a popular thread for family betrayal stories. I posted anonymously at first. Within hours, it blew up. Thousands of upvotes, hundreds of comments, people calling Rachel a monster, strangers validating my pain in ways my own parents never had. But the real impact came a few days later. My phone rang. A number I hadn't seen in months. Mom. I didn't answer. She called. Again, then Dad, then Rachel. I finally picked up the third time Mom called. Her voice was tight, angry, accusatory. "What the hell did you post about your sister?" I didn't yell. I didn't even raise my voice. I just said, "Everything I wrote is true, and I can prove it." Silence. Then, "You've embarrassed this family." I almost laughed. They never once called to ask if I was okay after the arrest. They didn't care when I lost my scholarship. They let me disappear without a word. But now they were angry because their golden child's mask had slipped. It was always about appearances. Never about the truth. A week later, I got a message from an old family friend, someone who had always believed in me, even when my parents didn't. She said, "I believe you, and you're not alone anymore." That message meant more than anything, because slowly, things began to shift. More people came forward. Chloe posted her story. Braden posted his screenshots. Others who had known Rachel started whispering. The cracks widened. And then finally the school that revoked my scholarship reached out. They had seen the post, and they wanted to reopen my case. I had to submit everything. My portfolio, the Reddit thread, the messages, character references. I didn't let myself hope, but I prayed. Weeks passed. Then one morning, I got the email. "We are pleased to reinstate your admission and scholarship based on new evidence. We apologize for the error. I burst into tears. Happy tears. Exhausted. Tears. Tears I'd held in for over a year. Because I had finally gotten something back. My future. But there was one final confrontation left. Rachel. She showed up at my apartment door one evening. Unannounced. Her eyes were red from crying. She looked tired. Cornered. Why? I asked, before she could speak. Why did you do it? She didn't deny it. She just said, because you were finally winning, and I wasn't ready to be the one left behind. I stared at her, stunned. No apology. I whispered. She shook her head. Would it even matter? And I realized, in that moment, she was right. It wouldn't fix anything. But I didn't need her apology. I had my truth. I had my freedom. I had me. I closed the door behind Rachel without another word. Her face, so smug for most of my life, had finally cracked. There was no more mask. No more performance. Just a hollow, desperate girl who realized the truth was no longer a secret she could bury. But I didn't feel triumphant. I felt tired. Tired from carrying the weight of her betrayal. From years of trying to earn love that was never meant for me. From being treated like a problem that needed fixing instead of a person worth protecting. That night, I sat alone on my small couch, replaying everything: my arrest, my parents' silence, Chloe's bravery, Braden's confession. I thought I would feel vindicated. But what I felt, deep in my bones, was grief. Grief for the brother I never got to be. Grief for the family I never really had. Grief for the years I spent trying to make them proud, only to realize their love came with conditions I could never meet. But here's the thing about grief: once you face it, it stops controlling you. And that's when the healing began. College wasn't easy. I showed up to campus with baggage, emotional, mental, and literal duffel bags of clothes. I didn't know anyone. I had a gap year on my record and an online reputation that was still echoing from my Reddit post. But for once, I didn't have to hide who I was. My story had already been told. The worst had already happened. There was nothing left to fear. So I created a new version of myself. Not someone fake, just someone free. I threw myself into my work. My art professor, a sharp-eyed woman named Lisa, saw something in me I didn't even recognize. She said, "You paint like you've lived 3 lives." I had. And my art became my therapy. I poured every ounce of my trauma into canvases: rage, betrayal, heartbreak, resilience. My classmates started asking questions. I told them the truth. No shame, no apologies. For the first time in my life, my voice mattered. Around midterms, I got in the mail from a local gallery. They'd seen my portfolio and wanted to feature one of my pieces in a student showcase. The painting was titled Inheritance. It showed a house my childhood home, but half of it was on fire, while the other half stood untouched. Inside, 2 silhouettes, one screaming for help, the other watching with a smile. It was raw, angry, honest, and it sold within 2 days. The buyer left a note. "This reminds me of my own family. Thank you for sharing something so real." That one sentence made me cry. Because all my life, I had been told to keep quiet, to not make waves, to stop being so dramatic. And now, my pain was helping other people heal. Then came the letter. It arrived during spring break, forwarded from my old address, handwritten, stamped, with my full name on the front in neat cursive from Dad. I stared at it for hours before opening it. Inside were 3 pages of lined paper, folded neatly. His handwriting was stiff, as though he had it written by hand in years. The letter read, "Michael, I don't know how to start this. I've rewritten this letter 5 times. I guess I'll just say what I should have said a long time ago. I'm sorry. Sorry we didn't believe you. Sorry we didn't listen. Sorry we were so blind to Rachel's manipulation. Your mother and I have been in denial for a long time. We thought protecting the family meant protecting appearances. We were wrong. We failed you." I saw the post. I saw the messages. And I spoke with Braden myself. He confirmed everything. Rachel confessed, eventually, though not publicly. She's getting help now. Therapy. Court mandated, after another girl filed a report. It's a mess, but not as big a mess as what we did to you. I know we don't deserve forgiveness, but I hope, someday, you can let us try. Love, Dad. I sat there holding the letter like it might burn me. Part of me wanted to rip it up. Another part wanted to run home and collapse into his arms like I had always wanted to as a child. Instead, I folded it neatly and put it in a drawer. I wasn't ready, but I appreciated the attempt. Months passed. I started volunteering at a youth center, teaching art to teens from troubled homes. Some had been through worse than me. Some were still in it. They'd ask questions, raw and real. How do you forgive someone who never said sorry? How do you stop blaming yourself? I never pretended to have all the answers, but I told them what I knew. That survival isn't weakness. That your worth isn't measured by who believes in you but by how deeply you believe in yourself. That silence helps abusers. And your voice? It's the strongest weapon you have. One kid, Jamal, drew a picture of himself screaming underwater. He said, "No one ever listens." I told him, "They will, just don't stop screaming." Eventually, I did go home, not to stay just to visit. Mom greeted me at the door. She looked smaller somehow, like all the armor had cracked. I didn't know, she whispered. I didn't want to know. I didn't hug her, but I didn't walk away either. Dad joined us in the kitchen. We sat around the table, the same table where I used to feel invisible. This time, I didn't shrink. I told them everything. How it felt to be treated like a stranger. How they'd failed me. How Rachel's lies stole my future but that I had taken it back. They didn't argue. They just listened. And sometimes that's the beginning of something new. Rachel didn't join us. She was in a treatment facility. According to Dad. Not just for therapy but for deeper psychiatric evaluation. Apparently, her patterns extended beyond me. The girl Chloe had mentioned had pressed charges. Another family came forward too. I didn't feel joy at her downfall, only relief. She couldn't hurt anyone else. At least not for a while. And maybe she'd get the help she so clearly needed. Because what she did to me, it didn't come from love. Or even hate. It came from something hollow inside her. Something broken long before I ever stood in her way. Today, I'm 24. I just finished my final semester of college. My thesis project, a visual diary of my healing process, was selected for national exhibition. I've started speaking at high schools about emotional abuse and toxic family systems. And I've reconnected with Chloe. We're friends now, actual friends. Trauma brought us together, but healing kept us there. She's studying psychology. Says she wants to be the kind of counselor she wished her brother had. We're survivors. But more importantly, we're Rivers. So, if you're watching this video, and your story feels similar to mine, if you're the quiet sibling, the scapegoat, the one no one believes, please hear me. You are not alone. You are not crazy. And you are not the problem. Sometimes the hardest thing to do is speak up. But once you do, the world opens in ways you never imagined. It may take time. It may take years. But your voice is power. Use it.